been covering this case forever, and now Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been freed and is out from ICE detention. I'm going to get into it. Check this video.
You're never going to believe this. Judge Paula Zenas today, a few hours ago, told the Trump administration they have to release Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Why? Because they never had any legal basis to hold him. They never even had a removal order. They lied this entire time. This whole time running us through, and this poor man through this emotional turmoil, to being tortured in El Salvador, to being prosecuted in Tennessee for fake reasons, all these, calling him all sorts of names out his face, lying with no justification. Just the entire weight of the United States government, boom, pounded on this man. They never had a removal order. They never had a deportation order. Oh my God. You're like, what is this lady going on about? Stay tuned. Get some tea. Let me give you the tea. So, for those of you who follow me, I'm JJ Legal. I'm in the dockets. I'm an attorney following all the cases and lawsuits filed against the Trump administration. This is one of the ones I've been following from the beginning because this is my neighbor. He's from my state of Maryland. Judge Paula Zenas, my kids and her kids went to school together at one point. So I'm invested in this case from the beginning. Roll back. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia came to the United States in around 2017, I think, escaping gang violence and trying to be forced in the gang. I have some background on that from my own country, but I'll talk about that later another time. And so he first had an asylum claim. It was denied. He went back towards the judge. The judge was like, okay, we're not giving you asylum. However, you have a withholding order. 2019 said you should not be removed from the United States and you should not be removed to El Salvador. That's what the order said in 2019. That's the only order. You should not be removed to El Salvador. So what did the Trump administration do? They took him along with about 200 or so other Venezuelan and Latino Hispanic men and women. That's another case for another day. I'll tell you about that later. I've talked about that here before. And sent them to be tortured in El Salvador for 100 days ultimately, in violation of the immigration order. So, of course, his wife, and he's living in Maryland. He's a sheep melder worker. He's a union member. Has some stepkids, special needs stepkids. His wife was like, what the? Sued. Because she sued, a judge had to decide, because the United States Department of Justice attorney named Era Zervini admitted that he was deported in error. So the judge was like, if he was deported in error, bring him back to correct that error. They didn't do it. Instead, they appealed. It took all 9 justices of the United States Supreme Court, all 9, including Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Gorsuch, Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, all said, including the 3 women, bring him back, because all people in the United States, irrespective of their status, is entitled to what's called habeas corpus. They have the right to defend themselves against an order or a decision by the United States government to remove you from the country. You have the right to, with a lawyer, to say why you shouldn't be removed. That's basic. So justice like bring him back. So they got pissed. You know what they did? Rather than just bring him back, they convinced some AUSA in Tennessee to turn a traffic stop. He was just transporting some coworkers from one job site to the next. They pulled him over, gave him a ticket, said, all right, it's done. They turned that in and said he's a human smuggler. Not just a human smuggler, they said he's a human trafficker of kids. It's made up something. You know how I know it's made up? I'm in the dockets. In the dockets, they got 2 jailbirds, not one. One of them was serving a 30-month sentence for being a human smuggler himself. He's been deported 4 or 5 times. So not the best credible witness, and got a relative of his, both of them testified that, yeah, Kilmar did all this stuff. He was messing with the girls. He was doing. The magistrate judge in charge of deciding whether or not to hold bond when it's a criminal was like, this doesn't even make sense. He couldn't possibly spend 70 hours going back and forth, 2,000 hours between Maryland and Texas. That don't even make no sense. Get out of here. The judge who was reviewing the case said Kilmar Abrego met the credible case. It was a high bar to say that you're being vindictively prosecuted, which he was. So we're going to have a hearing on determining that. You know, the Department of Justice couldn't even finish that whole process. Like, they just gave up in between. They're trying to prosecute him in Tennessee. They didn't have no lawyers. They had no facts, no stacks. They brought the evidence they brought just made sense. The magistrate judge was like, what is this? And that's the case. If you follow me, I know in the dockets, there's so many cases where they don't have any evidence. They just make up stuff. They don't have any basis to judge. When they go in front of the judge, the judge is like, what is this? This happens so many times. Of course, it's again happening in Tennessee. That Tennessee case is about to be dropped. While that Tennessee case is about to be dropped, Judge Paula Zenas over here has been asking them, where is your deportation order? Where is the proof that you have the rights to hold him? Instead of bringing it, they're lying. They're consistently lying. They're just buying time. They're going to different African countries. And they're going to, first they go to, they say he's going to Uganda. Uganda was like, no, he's not. No. Then they say he's going to Eswatini. Eswatini is like, what? Like a day or 2 hours before the order, you telling us you going to Eswatini? You didn't even talk to us. Eswatini was like, no. Then they said, all right, he's going to Ghana. When they said he was going to Ghana, they announced it on social media. Immediately, a representative from the Ghanaian government responded to that tweet. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is, man, we said we'll take some Africans. He ain't even from Africa. We didn't agree to that, son. 3 strikes, you're out. The judge was like, this 3 strikes, you're out. And then they say, find Liberia. The Liberian government responded like, you're telling them that he's going to deport you here. You just asked us to have a transport, like a temporary transport, like on his way someplace else. There was no plan for him to be deported. What? 4 African nations. Why are they trying to deport him to Africa? To punish him. Why are they trying to punish him? Because the nation of Costa Rica said they would take him. Costa Rica is on our coast. Costa Rica is like maybe an hour flight away. Because remember, he has a kid here. He has stepkids and a wife. So he said, well, fine, you insist on deporting me, I'll go to Costa Rica. Costa Rica's like, yeah, we take him. They hid the fact that Costa Rica said that. They closed it out so Costa Rica doesn't even know that they had agreed to that. That Kilmar agreed. They sealed that off. It took Kilmar Abrego's lawyers and the judge to figure it out. The judge was like, what? You guys are trying to hide the fact that Costa Rica said from Costa Rica itself because y'all insist on sending him to Africa to be punitive. So she said, all of that. Bring me the order. There's no order. There's never been an order. The order removal that you remember in previous recent video, I said how Stephen Miller is stupid and full of shit. He don't know what the hell. He was in a meeting in the Oval Office, include Bukele, and said that this man had an order of removal. He never had an order of removal. He had an order of non-removal. He had an order of withholding of removal, the opposite of removal order. And they never bothered to update it. They never got another judge to say he could be removed. They're just saying this. They're just making this up. They're just saying we're going to deport him. And they say withholding only. Withholding based on what? You can't deport people unless there's... And there's a law that says you cannot hold someone and detain them indefinitely. So based on that law, the case law... It's a case called Zavitas v. Davis that says that United States government cannot withhold someone indefinitely. For it could only be a reasonable... period that's reasonably necessary to effectuate the removal. So they've been holding this man for weeks and weeks and months. Not only are they withholding him without reason, but they're withholding it without a withholding order. And so there's a statute of the Immigration Nationality Act, a section called 1231 that says it's unlawful to detain someone. So it's legally unlawful, statutorily unlawful. They don't have a lawful order. They've been rude and disrespectful and like belligerent and like just obfuscating against this judge. So she says, like, you gotta tell me when you're gonna remove him. You gotta let his lawyers know. This is mandatory. You gotta let him out the house. So again, if I was Kilmar Abrego Garcia, my next step is get myself a lawyer to file a defamation claim against Fox News and any news organization that called me anything. Say I'm a human smuggler, a human gang member, without using the words alleged or accused, whatever gang member. Once you say that he is a gang member, he is an MS-13 member, he is a human smuggler, he is, in which all these Trump administration officials done, a lot of your news organizations have done it, sue all of them. But the money you get from the settlement, get yourself, and maybe before that, maybe you can get maybe get somebody to advance the money. Get yourself a security team. Get yourself a house, secure, and have an armed security guard take you back and forth to work. If you work, I don't know, you might just have to chill a little while until they leave me alone. Get off my back. I have an order. You don't have no basis for removing me at all. You don't have start a case over for removal. In the meantime, dude, you need to get married to your wife. You get married to your wife. Have your wife file an official, formal, suggest status sort of situation because you're spouse of a U.S. citizen. Start that process. I'm not your lawyer, but if I were, this is the type of things that I would do. Get yourself some security. Get ready your defamation case. Marry your wife. Start the process. And maybe with some of the money you get from Fox, and then maybe you could just leave this country temporarily and just chill, live someplace else for a little while till things die down. Or Chrissy Knowles, who's being hammered in Congress today for her lies and her just crazy assness. So she's removed and the rest of them are removed. That's my recommendation. Anyway, JJ League with Each One Teach One. I'm going to be talking with Ash Renee 411 tomorrow live about this case. Stay tuned. I'll give you the details about that. Yeah.